59% of all the net flows for Ethereum has occurred in the last month and a half, so since the start of June. And in July, about 2/3 of that buying has actually just happened in July. So there's been a huge just resurgence of appetite for Ethereum.
Just because the markets are green and going great, always think the inverse, because typically you've got to do the opposite of what the masses are doing.
I think that's the most toxic thing about crypto. Like, we live in an environment where, week on week, we can see things up 20, 30, 40%, and we act like that's normal. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tapping Into Crypto podcast with me, Pav, and Ted, mate.
Hello, Pav.
How you going?
Great, mate. How are you?
Mate, great week for the markets. So I'm having a good week as well. I'm sure you are too.
Absolutely great week in the markets. I think it's just been, obviously we had Bitcoin all-time high last week and then sort of flowed into altcoins recently, which we'll get into. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy right now.
Now, there's something I know everyone's probably dying to find out. Mate, what'd you get up to on the weekend?
I'm glad you asked. I went to the British and Irish Lions versus Wallabies game at Suncorp, and mate, absolute atmosphere. Like, one of the best things I've ever witnessed. Like, I went to State of Origin game 3 the week before.
I was going to say, was it better than Origin?
And I would say the atmosphere before and after the game, both inside and outside the stadium, like on Caxton Street, and just the buzz around was incredible. Unfortunately, the Wallabies got done pretty, done in, which kind of killed the vibe, at least for Wallabies fans in the stadium. But everything before and after, like the lead up, was huge. So yeah,
it's like what, every 12 years?
Every 12 years. So they'll be playing in Melbourne next week.
So literally, the next time it's around, a lot of boys will be men and men will be old men.
Yeah. Last time it was here, I was in like grade 11. Yeah. So mate, it's a long time.
There you go.
Time flies. Should we recap should we preview what we're going to discuss on the potty today? So I think, obviously, we're going to recap all the altcoins hitting new highs.
Lots to talk about there, so I'm excited.
Yeah, lots to talk about. We're going to talk about ETH. We're going to talk about ETF inflows, of course. What else?
I actually want to throw it out there. Just want to throw the air of caution. I'm going to take that bearish sort of take with the markets running so hot. So I'm going to share my reasons why things could be getting a little bit overheated right now. So that's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's recap. So just before we recorded last week, so we record on Tuesday, we hit a Bitcoin all-time high of about 123K. Since then, we've been teetering around that, 118, 20 mark. But what happened? Like, we saw like an altcoin rotation.
We saw like crypto week as well was last week, right? We talked about that.
True, we'll recap that. But yeah, we saw money flowing from Bitcoin into altcoins, and we see this through the Bitcoin dominance chart, where that's come down, a few percentage points. So XRP has hit a new all-time high, first time in 7 years.
Mate, holders rejoice.
Mate.
It's a long time between drinks.
Yeah, who do you say is like the biggest fan of XRP?
Oh, don't do this to me. Everyone.
Yeah. No, look.
Not just tradies.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's easier to understand more so than some of the other projects.
That's what you got to give it to them, right? Like, they're actually looking to solve a problem, whereas, people might not know it's going to happen, but at least they're happy to speculate that, banking is a pretty shitty experience for 2025, right? So anyone that's looking to improve that, I can see why people jump on.
Yep. And Ripple expanded institutional custody services into the Middle East, so they're doing big things there. That kind of lined up. I don't think that was the catalyst for the all-time high, but obviously, Ripple's continuing to make moves across the world. They're doing things in Australia as well. So yeah, like, definitely interesting to see how that plays out, particularly because they got their RLUSD stablecoin and how that, if it cannibalizes or competes with XRP to any point. It seems like the appetite for XRP is just like an investment or a speculative investment is super high right now. So
that's it. And I think when you touch on just what happened in crypto week last week, it'll make more sense why XRP is doing really well, as well as some of the other top movers that we'll touch on.
Yep. Absolutely. So what else? Ethereum has hit, Ethereum's up like 20, 25%, 30% in the last 7 days. So it's finally started moving. I think everyone's been waiting for this for a long time. It's sitting around 3,800 USD. So it's still a while off its all-time high of about 4,800, 900 USD.
Yep.
So not quite there as opposed to like XRP and Bitcoin and those coins. But
I thought it was interesting with the Ethereum ETFs as well. Like, I think we spoke about that on the potty. We've kind of neglected to talk about it because they've been so dead for so long. But I got a nice little stat here. 59% of all the net flows for Ethereum has occurred in the last month and a half, so since the start of June. And in July, about 2/3 of that buying has actually just happened in July. So there's been a huge just resurgence of appetite for Ethereum from an institutional front.
They had their highest ever day of trading on the ETFs last week.
They did.
Obviously, big things happening. But we also spoke about last week how there are these, ETH treasury companies popping up, similar to MicroStrategy for Bitcoin, like SharpLink, I think, is the biggest one.
Yep.
They've acquired, $860 million alone in crypto, in ETH, sorry. And we spoke about this last week before ETH had even moved, and now we finally see it, take off. Like, it's outperforming Bitcoin for the first time in a long time. So, and I think that's typically what we've seen in previous cycles where, Bitcoin runs first, then it flows into ETH, and then it flows down into other altcoins.
It's really good to see.
That seems to be playing out.
Super healthy. Yeah, really keen.
But what else have you got? Because I know you've got some notes here about like Bitcoin ETFs and how they're performing, but I know you just touched on, a bit of an alternative opinion to everything that's looking bullish right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously when things are looking great, you hate to be that person in the room that's saying, come on, guys, time to pack it up. Let's go home. I don't think this is a case that the market's turning around and we're going to see a bear market. But even in a bull market, like as we've talked about on the show before, like, altcoins specifically, 30% drawdowns are normal when we're heading to the upside. So I do think having a look at the way Bitcoin's technical structure formed up on this week, bit of a failure. We failed to like make a new solid high. Like we put in that all-time high last week, but really haven't pushed any higher than that and actually sold off quite quickly, in my opinion. But this is classically when you would then, if that was a top signal or like a intermediary local top, you'd then like to see a lot of the altcoins start to play catch up. And you could just think about this as, maybe the market's taking a lot of its profits from Bitcoin and rotating that into like your Solanas and your Suis and your Dogecoin and your Filecoin.
Yeah.
So then you just start to see just sector-wide rallies and they start to move really, really quick. You start to see double-digit gains, like back-to-back days. And that's when, historically, I know I've been caught out with it, just haven't taken profits. So like I've made it sort of my business this week to start to take a bit of positioning off on some of my short-term stuff. If we don't see a dip, I'm not going to be too disappointed. But the way things are gearing up right now, even just looking at how frothy the market gets. So I was actually looking at derivative data yesterday. So open interest is one of the metrics that we like to measure, basically measures how many people are long and short in the market. Altcoin open interest, the amount of people speculating on altcoins is actually greater than both Bitcoin and Ethereum. So just from a market perspective, everyone's chasing altcoins right now. So that is also just a bit of a sort of a, another check mark for me that things might be getting overheated. Yeah. But it could continue just to finish on that point. We could see altcoins still continue to the end of the week. But these are kind of times where you just don't know. It could finish Wednesday, could finish Thursday, or even if it does keep going, that's just, I guess, sometimes the price that you pay by being a bit more cautionary with your investing.
So how are you going to play this?
I've, as of Monday, took profits on a lot of my short-term holdings, and I'm basically just waiting for a dip now to get back in. And if that doesn't come, I'll just wait for a breakaway and just look to resume with the trend when it comes back in my direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're pretty confident we're going to have a pullback?
My short-term investing strategy, yes. I have two buckets. I've got the long-term. I haven't touched it. That stays as long as I think the market's still going higher. And right now, everything sort of points towards, there's still room to go. But short-term, where, every sort of month I'm sort of reassessing, do I want to be in certain investments? I basically took this opportunity to trim down probably 80% of that portfolio. Yeah.
Well, look, I can't really speak too much on the short-term pullback. Yeah. Obviously, you're the chart guy in the room, so I'll take your word for it. But I think from zooming out and looking at least the remainder of the year, everything is aligning. Everything's looking super strong.
It is.
If you look at the macro, you look at structurally, everything's pointing in the right direction.
Yep.
Investor sentiments, even looking good. Like I know, but even looking at some of the, the retail sort of metrics that we constantly look at to see if retail's coming back in, whether it be Google Trends or YouTube or app downloads of like some of the bigger apps. It's still not, it's ticking along, to the upside, but it's still not, seeing the crazy, surges. Not. So I think that's a positive sign. We don't want that to go super crazy because that's typically, once everyone's in, that's typically when the smart money pulls out, exit liquidity, and so on. But look, everything's looking good. Like we just saw our biggest ETH day for the ETFs. The big beautiful bill got signed in the US, which means lots of spending, which means more liquidity. And we've looked at M2 and money supply in particularly the US and seeing like how that impacts markets. And typically that is a favorable environment for risk on assets like Bitcoin and crypto, right?
Agree. Like that's why I still think let's not miss the forest for the trees. Like we're still looking great, I think, sailing into the end of the year. So I don't want to, definitely dismiss from that.
What's your target for Bitcoin?
Oh, God, doing this. Higher.
Yeah, higher. Okay.
Much higher.
Yeah. Nice.
But I think just going again on what we're seeing in the market in terms of positivity, I know we spoke about the new SEC chair, Paul Atkins. Gary Gensler, I think people might remember him, was very much a go after crypto, sort of, what's the word? Crack the whip and don't really ask too many questions sort of approach.
Yeah.
That's a very bad way to word it.
Yeah, I forget, like it was like enforcement.
Over
it was I forget.
Regulate by enforcement.
Yes, regulate.
That's
by
the word.
There we go.
But he basically
still got it.
They still got there. Very painfully for everyone listening. But old Paul's come out basically overnight, so being Tuesday today, and basically declared Ethereum not a security. So I know there had been some debate that hadn't been put to bed, even though the ETF has gone live. So again, we're talking about all that clarity from a regulatory perspective in the US from last week. And now you're seeing the SEC come out and say Ethereum's not a security. Look, there's just a lot to celebrate right now.
Yeah. And security, we mean like a stock, like a company stock, which has been a debate for a long time about like, are these cryptocurrencies just like stocks of the company that issues them, right? Yes. Like, is XRP a stock of Ripple? Whereas that obviously went through courts for years and years.
Yes.
Found out it's not.
Yeah.
But where does this lead to? It's like, because there are applications for Solana, Litecoin, and XRP ETFs currently with the SEC, and given that Paul Atkins seems to be pretty favorable in terms of crypto,
that's right.
Like these are all good signs. And I don't know what I think last week we spoke about. Bloomberg is predicting 90% approval rate by the end of the year for a lot of those ETFs, like those altcoin ETFs. So. Yeah, I think all things are looking in the right direction from a regulatory standpoint.
Especially with ETH ETF now actually performing, it goes to show you there is market demand for those sort of products. So it's a great sign for when these things actually come to market that people will probably be responsive to them.
Cool. Let's look at the top movers for the last 7 days.
Got some good ones. I mean, from my perspective, it'd be good to get your take, Ted, but meme coins just continuing to thrive and, probably to the dislike of many, unfortunately, that just don't get it. Like, that's okay. But we are just seeing rotational strength now. Last week we saw Bonk, but now we're seeing more of a preference towards Floki, Dogecoin, and SPX. Again, talking about... we talk about Bitcoin leading and Ethereum following. You could break that down sector by sector. So if we've seen things like Bonk start to lead the charge, you've then got to look at, okay, well, what's next to get that flow? And that's what we're seeing probably play out right now. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, I know we spoke about Bonk last week, and it's got that utility with the letsbonk.fun, which allows people to create their own tokens and launch meme coins and stuff. There's some. I looked at it. It's a cesspit of just trash. But
the internet doing what it does best.
Yeah. People love that. They love trading. They love memes. So it's all about that. So Bonk continues. I think I incorrectly called Bonk in the top 20 last week, so I want to correct myself. It's actually not. I don't know where I saw that.
That's right. I called you out at the time.
Thank you. Someone's got to do it. Yeah. What else?
Other than that, I've been seeing a bit of performance on Curve. So Curve's been a bit of a dinosaur. I guess you could not really put it in the dinosaur camp. I'm not sure.
What is Curve?
Well, Curve is a early project that when DeFi really sprung into action in 2020, 2021, basically provided the keys to stablecoin liquidity for the whole Ethereum network. So like, for example, if you wanted to trade in and out of stablecoins, it was likely going to tap into Curve to basically provide that backstop of liquidity to make those trades. So, if you're trying to work out why that might be moving, I think a lot of it might have to do with what we're seeing with regulation clarity. The Genius Act going into play, that stablecoins will now form some point of the economic environment in the US. It's happening.
Yep.
And if you're looking at Ethereum or any of the chains on Ethereum to be where some of that business might be conducted, and that you're going to need stablecoins, Curve might be what people are speculating now as like a bet to sort of off the back of that. So, the token itself seeing a huge gain. I think it's up close to 109% in the last couple of weeks. But I thought that was a really interesting one, and it kind of makes sense to me that the market is maybe speculating that, if regulation's coming, what does that mean for like projects actually increasing in value and driving more revenue? And Curve, it makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
I just remember going on Curve back in like the last cycle and looking at it. They've gone for like branding of like really old school type website.
Windows 95.
Yeah. And so it may shock people when they look at the platform itself, but it's like a typical decentralized exchange, right? Yeah. So one I haven't really heard about in a while, but
it's been silent for quite some time.
Obviously on the back of the ETH tailwinds as well. But look, I have a few lessons that I want to talk about in crypto, and this comes directly from me anecdotally, because I've made all the mistakes in the world that you can probably imagine. And I think a lot of people hear other people talking about don't do this, don't do that, but until you actually experience it, it's really hard to like go against the grain or go against what everything in your mind is telling you to do.
Oh, you're fighting yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, for most people, it takes a lot of experience. But what we can do is try and, detail a few little lessons and a few little do's and don'ts. And this is particularly pertaining to like, when crypto's mooning, when things are going really well, everyone's, super bullish. Often people are jumping back in.
Yep.
Some people might be thinking, some people might be thinking, oh, do I take profits or do I let it ride? Like what's the play here? So I think a key one is to always have an exit plan. Now, this doesn't necessarily need to be, super detailed and be like, okay, this exact price, I'm pulling out 33% of my allocation. And then, it can just be like, if people are dollar cost averages into assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, it's always a good idea, or you always might look at dollar cost averaging out, shaving profits off the table when things are going great. And I know Tommy last week, or when he was on last, he was talking about he never buys green days, he's only buys red days and only sells red days, which I think is a nice inverse psychology thing to remember when, okay, just because the markets are green and going great, always think the inverse, because typically you've got to do the opposite of what the masses are doing, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Shave off profits, pay your bills, take some earnings. When we are in this to make money, but I think a lot of people think like this is my ticket to being a millionaire.
Well, yeah, I think that's the most toxic thing about crypto. Like we live in an environment where, week on week, we can see things up 20, 30, 40% and we act like that's normal. Like you go out and tell your mates on the weekend, they'll be like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like,
yeah, exactly. And then people think like, oh, but it's going to go up another 200% in the next week. And it's like, it's always that, oh, but what if?
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's just a good idea to take a step back, and if you take profits off the table, and that's profit that you didn't have before, right?
Correct.
So that would be my first lesson. The other one is like, don't chase pumps. We often see, like you said, coins are having 20, 30% in even more bullish times, 100% pumps. And people can often jump on the wave after it's already, had its huge trend to the upside. So it's like, if you go chasing after pumps, you'll likely miss a lot of them. Sometimes you might catch it halfway up and ride it to the top. But I think if you're chasing, you often get burnt rather, more so than, you do well.
Yeah.
What else?
Speaking from personal experience there, mate, or?
Yeah, I think it's easy to get, the FOMO of like,
it's exciting, right?
This new meme coin's killing it. Everyone's making huge amounts of money. Like I think Shiba was the one last cycle that everyone was hearing about.
It's like some 10x in 2 days or something.
Yeah, and some guy, you hear the story of some guy put in $5 and became like a millionaire overnight, or in a couple of weeks.
So you got to remember, like exactly what you're saying. That guy didn't buy when it was pumping. So how could you expect the same result?
Exactly, and it comes back to do you buy green days? Typically it's a better idea to buy red days, and the inverse is for selling as well. So no financial advice, of course.
No, of course not. We're just talking about what we've done.
Yeah. Too many altcoins.
I like this one.
This is definitely something I have been a victim of in the past.
Same.
Like I was just spreading my capital very thinly over like 20 to 30 plus altcoins, and just hoping that one of them would do well. I know a lot of people do this because they tell me, oh, I just hope one of these coins does what Bitcoin does. And I tell them they're not.
Yeah.
Like they simply just
the mentality is like, it's like going to the convenience store and buying lottery tickets. Like that's what's happening, right?
Yeah. exactly. So I think it's better to, have your allocation in definitely Bitcoin and maybe ETH and some of the bigger coins, and then have your strong conviction plays on some altcoins if you want. But stick to your guns on those altcoins. Like, it means you can follow the news, follow the catalysts that are, going to send it in either upwards or downwards direction. When you've got 20 to 30 altcoins, it means, you have no idea what is happening on those and you can't follow them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. Say crazy, but I've done it.
Yeah, of course. We've all made these mistakes.
How crazy it is.
And I'll quickly run over these last ones. So no Bitcoin allocation. I think people can get very excited about altcoins. But when they have no Bitcoin allocation, that is the most stable. It's the biggest one. It's been around for the longest.
It's biggest backing now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, I know I will often sell profits into Bitcoin because I'm trying to increase my Bitcoin allocation. So yeah, that's something that you want to take a look at, particularly when things aren't as bullish. And then last one, as you said before, Pav, if you want to take advantage of some of those pullbacks, have a bit of cash on the sidelines. The crypto market is not prone to significant pullbacks, even in like some of the best times. Like, we've seen 30% pullbacks on Bitcoin.
Yeah, even when things are good.
Yeah.
You gotta, even some alts will take 50% haircuts.
Yeah, exactly. So expect that will happen.
Yeah.
But if you want to take advantage of it, remember, you got to have cash on the sidelines in order to deploy when things are down.
Exactly. Mate, good shout outs. I think it's very timely.
Yeah, I think
things are warming up.
Yeah, it's just good to remind, even myself, about these key messages when things are going
therapy.
well.
This is what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
What about you? Any key tips?
Yeah, I think just that, like, my cardinal sin in the past was holding too many, because again, I was like, for me, like, situation was different back then. Like, I just had like second or third kid last cycle. I can't even remember. But I was just like, well, capital's scarce. When I do deploy, I want to deploy so it actually pops. And to be fair, like, I did make it pop a few times, but then the thing is, when you put a little bit in and it turns into a lot, you're just like, oh, it's free money. Like, if it goes down a little bit, I'm not going to care. But at the end of the day, when you do see it go down 60, 70%, like, you do care. So it's a whole different mentality, and it's just a battle of yourself. That's where just having like an idea or a goal, or, I'm going to pay off this student debt, I'm going to buy this vehicle, I'm going to help pay down my mortgage like X amount, I want to prepay a year's worth of groceries. Like, those things are all tangible. And, even if the market sends like another, let's say 50% and you miss out, at least you still achieved your goal. So you still feel like you've got one up on before when you started. So you're still better off, right? So I think that was a big takeaway for me, just sort of having those goals.
Yeah.
Speaking of opposite of goals, let's talk spectacular fails.
Okay.
I thought, last week I threw in like a random little fact, and I kind of quite like that. So I might try and keep it up for the next few episodes. But do you remember the German government selling some Bitcoin?
Yeah.
So sort of walk everyone through that. Like many countries, such as the US and Germany and wherever else, they seize a lot of digital assets as part of the proceeds of crimes that they do investigations on. Those assets get seized, can be years. So the German government basically in June to July of 2024 sold to the tune of 50,000 Bitcoins. The average of their sales has been equated to be about $2.8 billion US, as in the revenue they turned over from selling all those Bitcoin. And it's just funny that if they didn't sell, it's $5.85 billion. So they would have, put another $3 billion on the balance sheet.
Jeez. Yeah, I guess that's why the US is doing it, right? They're holding all their seized Bitcoin because, that's what can happen.
It's what can happen. And it's a great point because, Trump basically has spoken clearly that they're not going to be selling seized Bitcoin. You even talked about that maybe being rolled into some sort of nationwide strategy or fund or strategic reserve, sorry.
Yeah.
So, I just thought I'd, as much as people might be feeling a bit harsh about themselves, maybe not doing so well in recent times, you still probably did better than in Germany.
Yep. And El Salvador is doing good, as we mentioned last week.
Yeah, that's where it sort of came from
diamond
last
hands.
week. I was like, diamond hands, and this is your paper hands or lettuce hands, I know, as you like to say, Ted.
Yeah, nice. But speaking of the US, we should probably just recap quickly the crypto week that happened on, I think it was Friday, our time. Yep. So what happened? There was 3 bills that were sort of the primary focus of the event, which was the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, and the Anti-CBDC bill.
Always a mouthful.
Yep. So Genius is, relating to stablecoins and regulating stablecoins in the US, how they're issued, how they're, reserved, whether they're like one-to-one in terms of dollar equivalents or dollars themselves. I think all 3 bills are sitting on Trump's desk. So you can probably imagine they're about to be signed, and it's probably already priced in because
here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
But the Anti-CBDC Act is an interesting one. Basically, it just means like they are trying to, prevent the creation of a central bank digital currency, which means like the US create a blockchain-based version of the US dollar, which means pure surveillance. They can roll back purchases. They have more control.
They can freeze certain individuals or like stop you spending it at XYZ facility.
Yep. Which is different from a stable coin, which is issued by a private company.
Yep.
Isn't like regulated. People use stable coins in all countries around the world. Whereas like I think they're going to try and limit access to the CBDC, similar to how they do it to the US dollar, right?
Yep.
I don't know a heap about the Clarity Act.
It's more around market making rules, so like people actually starting exchanges, like what governs them. Basically, the point to FTX, like just trying to stop that from happening again, and just providing clarity. Because I think we saw quite a bit 2023, 2024, like Kraken, Coinbase, all being actioned against us by the SEC, the former chair and former working groups that they had back then. They were at the time saying, yeah, we'll happily comply. Just give us like something to work towards. Give us a framework. And there was just nothing. There was just crickets. So now it just gives a little bit more direction and clarity there. I don't know exactly what's the finite details, but I think we'll start to see that emerge and see some rules. And I guess for Aussies, this is great news because it actually puts us probably on a faster roadmap to getting to crypto being legalized or regulated and legislated in Australia. Because at the end of the day, everyone will use what happens in the US as a bit of a case study for how they're going to probably apply it to their own laws.
Yep.
So that's exciting.
Except for CBDCs, which we are currently piloting. So, I mean, now that that's happening in the US, will that change? Who knows? But yes, many things to look out for. So, Pav, we'll touch base next week and figure out whether you were right or wrong on this pullback prediction.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm hoping the markets continue to run in the green and we have just a great week.
Mate, see what happens.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.